Hey everyone, and welcome to a new Video Attic. My name is Mike Vaughn. I am the host and also the author of The Ultimate Guide to Strange Cinema.
Yes, and my name is Dillon Gonzalez. I am a senior critic for GeekVibesNation.com and also a co-host of the Home Dance Film Festival podcast.
And we are once again really excited to talk about some great releases. And I'm just going to jump right into our first one. This is one that I was really excited about for a couple of different reasons. But that is the Untouchables on 4K.
Awesome.
And this is from Paramount. So here's a better look at the steelbook. And inside, now there will be a digital copy. It's just not in mine right now in the back. So, yeah, it's kind of wild because I'm a big De Palma fan, but I've actually never seen this one. So it's kind of cool, yeah, because now that we have a brand new 4K release, I feel like this is kind of the perfect timing. So it's really interesting because Brian De Palma was at the very top of his game going into this movie. Like he came right off of like hits like Body Double and Scarface. And this is without a doubt an epic in every sense of the word. You know, whether it's the cast that's incredible, like the score by Marconi, or like the sweeping cinematography, it's just grand is like the only way that I can really kind of think of it. And you know, De Palma, he always kind of makes his movies like a Swiss watch. They're always meticulously directed, shot. Every little piece is put into like pinpoint accuracy in place, and you get a lot of really great world building and scope. But it's also kind of interesting because I noticed that like he had some of his thriller tropes in this. Like there's that great POV scene with one of the bad guys in Connery, and I mean it definitely took me right back to some of his like earlier films like Blowout, and again like Body Double, and just you know any number of like De Palma thrillers. So that was really cool. And you know this kind of has one of those famous scenes with the baby carriage, which is a homage to Battleship Potemkin. So you've seen this, I take it?
Yes, it's been quite a while, probably like 15 years or so. I had the DVD. I never got around to upgrading to the Blu-ray, so I'm just going to skip that format and get to the 4K. Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's a great segue. This looks fantastic. It has a lot of really warm colors. There's a little slight blurring at times, but I think overall the picture is really crisp and clean. The colors are balanced really nice. This is a film that's set during the like bootlegging days of Prohibition, so like the colors are very kind of saturated, but overall looks nice. It's a little grain heavy, but not like at to the point where it's distracting. I think it's overall really fantastic. So yeah, if you you know only have the Blu-ray, this is a must get in my opinion. And yeah, and like I said, it was a treat because I had not seen this before. I've heard a lot about it, of course. It's fun because I'm definitely like filling in some of my like cracks as far as like my De Palma filmography. So Paramount has got you covered.
So excited to revisit that. That's one I've been wanting to revisit now for a couple of years, but I've just been putting it off. But now it's finally going to happen. And yes, thank you, Paramount. I appreciate it. Going to another movie that I've watched a little bit more frequently than The Untouchables, but I like it just as much, and that is 12 Monkeys from Arrow Video on 4K Ultra HD. And this is one where I had actually purchased the Blu-ray a few years back, but I'm more than happy to upgrade to 4K. Don't mind supporting this one more than once. This does have reversible cover art. which I'll show off here. And this first pressing of the new 4K comes with a nice booklet. Show you here.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, some nice stills and essays. And yeah, and it comes with just a 4K disc, no Blu-ray, but which is typical of Arrow, so this isn't like an anomaly or anything. But for those who haven't seen it, this is actually probably one of my top Terry Gilliam movies. It's a like a time travel tale. It stars Bruce Willis and Brad Pitt and Madeline Stowe, and it features. It starts in the future, and Bruce Willis is like a prisoner who's sent back to try to stop a virus from being unleashed upon the world that destroys most of the population, which we can't relate, obviously. And Brad Pitt, like, he meets Brad Pitt in an insane asylum, and it's just kind of you go from there of just him trying to, like, it goes back and forth a couple of times, and he misses like getting at the right exact point more than once, like point in time going back. But it's just him trying to stop this virus from being unleashed upon the world. And he keeps having like recurring nightmares that he's trying to like fill in the blanks of from his childhood. So it's like a really kind of, it's a well done time travel flick, and it's like has multiple layers and like misdirects. It's just a really tight screenplay that I really love, and with the inventiveness of Terry Gilliam, with like great production design and like one of my favorite Bruce Willis performances. This is Brad Pitt more early on, but he's kind of has that zaniness that he can tap into besides just being a pretty face. And then I really also like Bruce Willis's chemistry with Madeline Stowe. They have a nice kind of like push and pull dynamic that evolves nicely over the narrative. This 4K, like I said, I had the Blu-ray, so I can kind of compare, but like this 4K, it looks look like not remarkably better, but like nicer overall, like a tighter, more consistent grain field. It's in Dolby Vision, so it kind of has like, even though it's kind of more of like a subdued kind of desaturated palette, it kind of does have more vibrancy to the colors and depth, deeper black levels. It has the same kind of 5.1 audio track that's on the Blu-ray, so it's not like any Dolby Atmos or anything, but the 5.1 soundtrack is perfectly like amazing. So I like no faults there. It does have an audio commentary from Terry Gilliam and Charles Roven, and it has like a nearly 90-minute documentary on like the making of this film that has like a lot of great information in it, along with a couple other like appreciation pieces and like interviews with some of the talent involved. So it's a really nice release. Like I said, even if you have the Blu-ray, I would say if you're 4K capable, this is a nice upgrade. The one thing I do want to note, Arrow is fixing this issue, but there was a problem in the first batch of discs in the remastering process where there's like a quick scene that like the audio isn't affected, but it kind of loops the video again instead of like playing like the correct video. Is just kind of an error in the mastering process. So they have identified that, and they are going to send replacement discs. So just kind of pay attention to Arrow Video social media channels, and just like know when that replacement program is in place. Honestly, like I knew about the issue and kind of vaguely where the timestamp was when I was watching it, and like I somehow missed it. Still, it's very subtle, so it didn't like ruin my enjoyment of the film, but it is something that I'm glad they're going to fix. Now that I know where it is exactly, I can tell, but when I was just watching it, it didn't occur to me, so take that for what it is. But other than that, yes, Arrow Video did a really nice job with one of my favorite Terry Gilliam films, so I'm glad to have 12 Monkeys on 4K.
Nice. Yeah, so my next title is something that I actually knew about a little bit ahead of time, but I kind of get my lips sealed.
Ooh,
and that is Stunt Rock on Blu-ray,
nice.
brand new 4K. So we'll check out this packaging. It looks sweet.
Yeah. Shout out to our friend Andre, who did our site review back when it was released in theaters. It is a really great review if anyone wants to read it.
Yeah, I was thank you for mentioning that. So I wanted to give a little bit of context. So I've had the privilege of like knowing Brian Trenchard Smith for probably like 10 years now. He is a pretty legendary cult film director. And this movie's really interesting because it plays as kind of a pseudo documentary and fictional film. So that kind of doesn't make sense, but I'll explain. So the movie is a loving tribute to real life stuntman and stunt legend Grant Page. And in the movie, he finds himself working with a magic based rock group. That is the extent of the plot. The movie basically is just, as I say, a love letter to not only Grant Page, but other like stunt performers. Like it's kind of interesting how it actually talks a lot about the pitfalls of being a stunt performer. They like Smith kind of makes it a point to talk about how other people in the industry kind of consider them disposable, or like in the movie they call them breakables, which is so dehumanizing on so many levels. But it unfortunately I think highlights what probably was an issue for stunt people back then, and I don't know if that's so much the case now, but yeah, apparently it was very dangerous. They probably did not have the kind of safety procedures that we do now. It's part of what makes watching like movies from the 60s and 70s and 80s so spectacular, because they were doing this all in camera, and you needed people like Page to make it real without also dying. So the movie is very light on plot, and I think that if you're not really into grindhouse films, stunt performers, or like exploitation films, I think it might be maybe a little bit of a daunting watch. This release is really stunning. Again, as I mentioned before, it's new 4K. And as you mentioned, Andre did get to see that on the big screen, which was awesome. And Andre and I got to have Brian on our show and talk to him.
Yeah.
And what was cool was Andre got to meet Brian in person, and
cool.
he arranged Brian to come over to Scarecrow Video for a little impromptu thing. So I was glad to kind of help that happen. And he's such a nice guy. I'll link the interview in the description. So this has some really nice features. It has his interviews from this wonderful documentary called Not Quite Hollywood, which I own.
Whoa, nice.
And it is really fantastic. I mean, we're not reviewing this obviously, but I'll show it off anyways.
Yeah.
If you're curious, it's a really fun documentary, and Brian signed it for me, which is so cool.
Yes.
So highly recommend. We say this all the time, but like slipcovers, you're going to want to get it soon if you want that. It does not have reversible cover art, but that's okay. The packaging is still pretty rad. So great movie. It looks fantastic, sounds really amazing, especially you want something with a full sound that has like a soundtrack and a lot of stunts and explosions, and it really has a nice kind of full sound to it. So yeah, pretty great.
Nice. That sounds like one of the more like exciting, like low-key releases of the year. Like if people don't know about it, they need to put it on their radar.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, I've said it 100 times, and I'll say it again. That's what I love about this show. You know, we're both passionate about these films, especially highlighting the big films and the little films, like stuff that I want to shout from the rooftops because I think they deserve a wider audience.
Absolutely. I'm actually going to do that right now. This, I'm going to highlight a movie. On paper, this probably sounds fairly boring, and I didn't really know anything about this movie going into it, but I actually ended up really loving it. It is the new Sony upcoming 4K release of 1776, which is a damn near 3-hour musical about the signing of the Declaration of Independence, or the lead up to the signing of the Declaration of Independence. Here, let me show off that a little bit more. It comes, and this is one of like the low key one of the best releases of the year. I had like zero expectations for this. So here's the artwork underneath the slipcover, and it is a 3-disc release. You have the first disc here, the 4K disc. You have the first Blu-ray with the same contents and several audio commentary tracks. And then you have a third Blu-ray that just says special features. And I will explain kind of what's on each disc. So on the first 4K disc, this release history is kind of wacko. The studio kind of cut down the original vision of the director for the theatrical cut and just shaved it down to like 2 hours and 20 minutes, and released that in theaters, and the director pretty much hated it and abandoned it. So this new 4K release has both the director's cut and the extended cut, newly remastered in Dolby Vision and 4K with Dolby Atmos audio and 5.1 audio, like the original 5.1 audio, depending on what you want. Both of these look incredible. It's amazing. And the Dolby Atmos sound, like it's very immersive. And it, like, whenever you're listening to a musical, you want it to kind of just like consume you. And I think this track does a really good job. And like I said, the Blu-ray, like the first Blu-ray has these two cuts as well. And then the third Blu-ray, the special features Blu-ray, has the original theatrical cut, which I don't think has ever been released on like Blu-ray, maybe on DVD. I'm not sure if it's been released on physical media, but it's been a very long time if it has. So they finally had that in HD on the Blu-ray disc. And they have the Laserdisc cut, which is slightly different from this other cut, like all these other cuts, which is presented in standard definition, but it's pretty much like presumed to be lost to anyone that doesn't have a Laserdisc player. So Sony has kind of rescued that for fans, and that has like a different optional audio commentary from the director from back in the day. So Sony has went above and beyond. They provided 4 cuts of this movie on this disc, and like not a lot of new special features, but like what is there, like the audio commentaries for that's been rescued from the past, is amazing. And this movie is so much fun. It's from a stage play, and they did the smart thing, and whenever they adapted it to film, they pretty much brought everyone who was in the stage play to the film version. So these people know these characters like inside and out. The main character is John Adams, who is played by William Daniels, who most probably might know as Mr. Feeney from Boy Meets World, but he was also in like Knight Rider. He's in a ton of like great movies, and there's like a lot of like great people that if you see them, you're like, oh, that person's in this. And like Blythe Danner's in this. There's a ton of great people in this, and it's all just John Adams working to try to convince people that it is time to declare the independence from England. And like it's like the songs are really great, and like for like I said, nearly a 3-hour movie, it like moves by. It's like it's really like weirdly funny in some places. It is such a fun movie, and like this like kind of inspired Lin-Manuel Miranda to make Hamilton, like that you could kind of approach history in this interesting way. So that's like another like cool tie to this movie. I can't say enough nice things about this movie because it was not on my radar at all. But like Sony just like announced a 4K. I was like, I got to figure out what this is. I watched it and I really, really loved it. And like I said, the 3 hours flew by. And as I'll say, whenever you cover another title soon, I watched like like 3 or 4 movies that either met or exceeded 3 hours over the weekend. So it was like a heck of a weekend. But I highly recommend this from Sony. If you're a fan of musicals or just like really stunning 4K releases, 1776 is a really good time.
Great. Yeah, that's one that definitely was not on my radar, but definitely seems like something I would like to check out. And speaking of kind of obscure cinema, we have from Mondo Macabro, Hotel Fear. I keep wanting to call it like horror hotel. So I was like, I had to stop and like think in my mind how that was. But here's the cover, here's the back, some nice features. It is in 2K, new 2K scan. So this looks like a slasher. It is not. It's actually a very offbeat and incredibly sleazy thriller that is set during World War II.
Okay.
It kind of surprised me, but it is a period film. The movie itself, it moves at a fairly brisk pace and has enough weird moments and just strange characters to keep you engaged. The film, like the plot, and that's being generous, doesn't really hold up to scrutiny if you stop to think about it, but it's more of a mood piece. I know that sounds maybe like a cop-out, but it's more of just weird visuals that sort of move this fairly weird plot along. The whole thing just has a surreal and very off-putting quality. The ending is nuts. It's one of those endings that I know we talked about this on our all horror movies edition, but yeah, it's one of those endings that just absolutely makes the film because it is so left field bananas that it doesn't necessarily recontextualize the rest of the film, but it just like hits you like a ton of bricks. It was a really interesting discovery. A lot of Mondo films are like that for me. So this does not have reversible cover art, but as you can see, it is multi-region if you were curious about that. That's one of the nice things that I wanted to point out about Mondo titles. If you, have like a region B or C player, Mondo's got you covered. It looks really great. There's a lot of outdoor scenes that really look fantastic. It's a little bit on the grainy side, but not overly so. And I found like the skin and the color and skin tones having a really nice look and balance to them. Surprisingly, a film this old and this obscure, like the print must have been fairly decent because I didn't really notice a lot of like artifacts and scratches. So it was like overall really impressive. I mean, I'm not that shocked because I know Mondo really does overall a really nice job with the restorations. So if you want some like sleazy Euro trash, it's good. And again, okay. I was not expecting I was expecting a slasher and I got a quasi political thriller, and that's pretty cool.
In terms of mood pieces, how similar is this to like the weird imagery of like dementia?
Oh no, it's not quite that like surreal art housey, but it does just have this really just I don't know how else to explain it, but just off-putting. Like there's this hotel is just full of like sleazy, grimy characters, and
Okay.
it keeps you engaged because there is a little bit of a mystery, but again, the solution to it kind of doesn't make sense,
Mm.
which is a little frustrating, but I had such a good time with it anyways that I can forgive that.
Mhm. Okay.
So,
I mean, I recently watched Dementia upon your recommendation,
mm,
so I was trying to like gauge how close I was to that.
what
That
did you
was
what did you think
it
of
was a
that?
fun experience. It was fun. I enjoyed it. It's a real creepy, unsettling film, which I like.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, Another film that aims to be creepy, and that is a new Shudder film called Death Valley.
Mm.
Yes, and this is out from RLJE as normal with Shudder releases. Same cover art beneath the slip cover, and no reversible art here. Just discard. So yeah, I watched this last night in preparation for this episode. I didn't really know what to expect from it. Basically, the plot is there is kind of like a bunker place that is kind of running experiments and all that normal stuff, and there is a like some creatures abound, and there are soldiers that are supposed to come in and try to save like the one remaining scientist, or so we think. And just kind of weird, like some twists and turns throughout that I didn't really see coming, but I was just like, okay, that's where the film's going. um, this film, there were elements I liked about it, but overall, I would say it doesn't really work for me completely. The elements I do really like about it is I like that this film actually went for like practical effects. So like this creature here, like looks pretty similar in the movie, and like it is kind of executed really well. So it doesn't have that like digital look that takes me out of a movie. I felt that that creature like was in the space, which made things creepier. Um, where the film failed for me is in the acting and kind of the dialogue, and like the story was fine, but I think if the acting had been stronger, everything else maybe would have fell more into like a enjoyable enough space.
Mm.
That the acting was just kind of just very amateurish, and it felt kind of just like some friends got together to make a movie, but it was a little like a bigger budget than like a friendly movie like that. Like it had enough budget for creatures and stuff, but the performances weren't really selling it. And there was kind of like some very familiar plot points, like the guy who he has a pregnant wife who he's going out for one more mission to try to like make some money so he can like get out of the soldier game and all that type of stuff. And it all just kind of felt like you'd been there, done that. And then along with the kind of like stiff delivery of the lines, it just didn't really come together for me. Like I said, there were points where I was kind of like, oh, this is entertaining and like it's kind of creepy with the creature, but like all the human stuff just did not really work for me. But the release itself, it's perfectly solid release. There's a little bit of banding in the darkness, but other than that, it's crisp, clear HD picture. Sounds great. It has like some nice atmospheric effects and the surround sound. And this does come with like a making of featurette and like a cast and crew commentary, which I haven't listened to yet, but I'm going to for when I review this. So maybe that'll shed some light on like how things were made, and like maybe it'll give me a new appreciation. But just based on just the movie, it was kind of a disappointment.
Hear me out. What if the pregnant wife was actually a shark?
Well, you
Twist.
sold me. You sold me.
I was just trying to think like how could you like change up that like formula?
Yeah.
And I'm like, the wife is a shark.
Mm. This man has been getting busy with the shark.
Well, I mean, you don't want to think about those implications, but
Okay, sure.
you just accept the fact that in this world, he has a pregnant shark wife.
Yeah. Or he just has a pet shark that's pregnant. He's like, I'll be back for you. But like
Okay,
first
yeah.
I've got it's not
Like,
his baby.
yeah, all right. All right, I like that better. That's has less creepy underpinnings, I guess. Um, I don't know how to segue that, but the Batman.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I have to say I really was kind of nervous about this because I am a huge fan of pretty much every iteration of Batman. I really like the 60s camp Batman. Actually got to meet Adam West and the original Bat Crew.
Wow.
Um, you know, my generation, Michael Keaton is my Batman. But then I really appreciate what Nolan did with his trilogy. So I was a little like, how is Matt Reeves gonna nail this? And you know, the answer is it's has just this wonderful 90s grunge mix with a sort of grimy Fincher neo-noir. And that is such a interesting combo to hang this hat on. And I think in that way, it really establishes itself apart from Nolan's trilogy. On the con side, I will say that it is maybe a little overly long, and I think the finale is good, but I don't think it is set up as cohesively as maybe it could have. Um, Overall, I really like the detective aspect, the neo noir, you know, feeling that it gave me. Again, it definitely feels like a David Fincher movie, which I liked. I was getting a lot of Seven. So yeah, overall, really enjoyed it. They did a heck of a great job with the features.
Mhm.
Like look here. So slipcover, again, I know we say this a lot, but if you want that slipcover, you usually need to get it quickly. And let's look inside. So this will have a digital copy. It's just not in there right now. So that is the 4K disc and the Blu-ray disc and the special features disc. So it's nice because they put the features on a whole separate disc. So as far as this looks, it's really fantastic. I did stream this initially, but you know, I know we've talked about this before of like compression issues of streaming, and you really do get this beautiful, vibrant, crisp looking film. Obviously, the color palette is very grim and grime and dark, but having said that, it's like you can tell the clarity is there. Like it's not like a muddy, drab looking film, even though the color palette may be on the muted side. Does that make sense? So yeah, really fantastic. Has a Adobe Atmos track, which is really stunning. If you have a surround sound, it definitely has that kind of full complex sound that you would definitely want from something that's like action heavy like this. So overall, I think it's a must buy for me.
Absolutely. Yeah. This is kind of what I was alluding to earlier during 1776, where I had a weekend with very
Oh
long
yeah.
movies.
Okay.
So yeah. My wife, she's kind of like on the verge of like superhero fatigue. So it's kind of been I've been watching some of these on my own, but this weekend she was like, I think I'm in the mood for like some superhero stuff. So we watched Eternals, like the first 3 episodes of Falcon and Winter Soldier, Zack Snyder's Justice League, and then this. So it was like a weekend. So, but one thing I wanted to mention, like with the compression stuff, I noticed like, especially like going from like Eternals to Falcon and Winter Soldier, which Falcon and Winter Soldier obviously isn't on disc, unfortunately. Like they're both 4K presentations, but whenever I was streaming from Disney Plus with Falcon and Winter Soldier, I could just like notice like in the sky that there's like banding and like just kind of some unsightly digital like artifacts within the sky, and I was like, these are both 4K presentations, but I'm not getting that on my 4K disc. So that's why it's so essential, I think, to own these films like on physical media, because they just, despite them both being 4K, like there's a big difference.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, couldn't put it better myself. I think that plus, you know, I don't own any movies, so I don't know what I'm talking about. same same with you.
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely. You know, we support physical media. That is what this whole show is about. So check it out if you love these movies, if you want Warner Brothers to keep putting out amazing stuff like this in 4K and even older titles, which I really have to give credit to, again, like Sony releasing 1776, or like Warner Brothers and Paramount doing a lot of older titles in 4K. That's not cheap, and it's very time consuming as well. Like I've talked to people that have spearheaded restorations of films, and it can take years and hundreds of thousands of dollars, which I don't, you know, I didn't even really know that it takes that much time and effort and love to make these films. And it's a little bit of a rant, but I'm just saying, like, if you want to see more of that stuff, like, support physical media, like buy it, collect it.
Absolutely. Along that track, one discovery for physical media for me, I had never heard of this movie, but it seemed to fit right in my wheelhouse, and I did quite enjoy it. It is a new release from Kino Classics and Scorpion Releasing, and that is Almost Summer, which comes with a new 2K master, which is like, while it has a few issues still, it looks really nice. One thing, this does have reversible cover art, but I'm a little, like, it's a little weird because I think they kind of printed these backwards. Like, I think this should be over here, like, whenever it's reversed, or else I have to, like, turn the cover up. It's just, I don't know. It's weird. But you do have reversible cover art if you want it. You just might have to, like, flip the case or something. It just stood out. But this movie, it's kind of like a forebear to, like, Fast Times at Ridgemont High and that type of, like, teen comedy that's just, it's well written. It has some, like, funny, like, a basic plot that has, like, a lot of good gags within it. This one concerns a group of high schoolers where there is a high school like presidential election that is coming up soon, and this girl always runs unopposed, but certain people within the high school want someone of their own in power, as much power as a student president can be. So they kind of pick this basically no-name guy, basically force him to run for president, and then just kind of, like, try to shepherd him to a win. So it's not like a completely inventive plot, but there's some pretty, like, the content within this framework is pretty amusing. It's not, like, too, like, bawdy or anything. I think it's like a PG-13 movie. Oh, it says PG, but it's like 80s or 70s PG. So take that for what it is. You can have nudity instead of 70s PG. But it's a pretty funny movie. I enjoyed it overall. It has a cast. Probably the most famous person would be Tim Matheson, who does have, like, a new interview along with actress Lee Purcell. There's a new interview with the director and the costume designer. So they did do all of these are new interviews. So it's good they got some of these people to come back and reflect upon this movie. They made it, like, look really nice, with just, like, a few fluctuations in quality, and it sounds really nice. So if you're a fan of, like, that 80s comedy, like, well, this is 78, but, like, that type of comedy, I think this is a good release overall. And yeah, Almost Summer. It's a good discovery on my behalf.
Nice. Good summertime watch. Sounds like it.
Yeah.
So again, don't know how to segue because this is very different than that. And
We're
that
not on
is
our we're not on our game this week. We're not like synergizing with our titles as much.
we are always on our game
Hmm.
regardless, I think.
Okay.
But Mondo Macabros, Strangler versus Strangler. And gosh, this was another just weird surprise. So there's the cover, there's the back, shows you some of the like specs and extras. So oh boy. So this was just a really, this is like the definition of a offbeat 80s horror comedy. It very much does straddle that line between genres. Like it lets you know right up front that it is, as the British say, taking the piss. It's a very weird. It almost kind of plays like a parody of like something like Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer, where it's this like pseudo documentary type feel. It has somebody like narrating like a film noir, and basically it tells a story of a weird, creepy looking guy who loves opera, loves selling flowers, and oh yeah, he strangles women.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, a punk artist is using the string of murders as inspiration for his music. So, once again, Mondo has brought this kind of weird, obscure movie to light, and I really liked it. I thought it was really entertaining. Um, Again, what I think makes this film pretty great is it plays everything really serious and earnest, and thus I think it allows that absurd comedy to really flourish.
Mhm.
The plot isn't exactly deep, but I found like kind of just like Hotel Fear, I found it so weird and just like a car crash, you just can't help but look away.
Mhm.
So I found it thoroughly engaging. I was never bored. That's one of the things is, it could be a bad movie, just don't be a boring movie.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I think it has some interesting things to say about the punk scene in the 80s, as well as the relationship with media and the violence and violence at large. So that, again, it never purports to be really deep about these issues. It's very surface level, but I like that they kind of wove that through. So it kind of just adds a little layer, but it's again, it has this wonderfully insane finale that I think just is the cherry to the film. As far as it looks, again, Mondo did a great job with the overall clarity. Grain is a little bit heavy, but I would say, considering the film's age and obscurity, I was impressed overall just how like nicely it all came together. Like you can really tell darker lit and night scenes have a much higher uptick in brightness. This includes the original language version as well as a rare English dub with subtitles.
Sounds
Um,
like a fun discovery.
yeah, it was. Again, I watched these like back to back, and it did make for a really wonderfully strange double feature. And if you are adventurous, I highly recommend both films. And I can't say enough great things about Mondo. I love that I can cover something like the Batman and these titles in the same show. That's
Yeah, we give variety to our audience.
that we do.
Yeah. But speaking about movies about death,
There you go.
great transition. Another side of death. That is a new Kino Lorber and Good Deed Entertainment release of Moon Manor,
Hmm.
which is a movie I'd heard kind of the title of, but I hadn't really looked into it too much. But I saw it was coming to Blu-ray, and I was like, okay, I'll check this out. No reversible cover art, but so this movie it's really interesting. it says it's based on like a true-ish story. And basically what this is, it's a true-ish story about this man who, if I'm not mistaken, I believe this is his first and only acting role, but he's playing like a version of himself where he has Alzheimer's, and like he knows that it's getting worse and he wants to go out on his own terms. So basically the entirety of this movie is set in one day leading up to like this like celebration of life, basically, where at the end of it he's going to do like have assisted suicide. It's leading up to assisted suicide, and because he wants to go out on his own terms, but he wants to be alive and kind of like like aware of what's happening whenever people are like telling stories about him, and like just getting to gather all of his friends in one place for one final celebration. And like throughout this day, like you see him, like people coming to him and like kind of planning and like taking him through the day, but like as he's doing this, he's reflecting back upon his like younger years and like times from his childhood and how that impacted him, and like loves that he's lost, and like it's really like his partner like died of AIDS like many years ago, so you kind of see like their like initial like meeting, and it just goes from there. It's like a really nice story. I would say probably the performances in this movie are not completely amazing across the board. There are some weak links, but overall, I think the thematic resonance of the movie can make you kind of forgive kind of like the like shaggy dog quality of some of the filmmaking, but even some of the filmmaking techniques that they implement, like some of like the magical realism, because this guy, he's like a real character. He's like starred in like infomercials, and he's like he sells plots of land on the moon, and he's a real interesting guy. So this movie, it's very poignant and nice and like kind of darkly funny at times, and it's a nice discovery. I really enjoyed it. This presentation, it's really nice. It's a nice HD transfer. The sound is great. It has like about 34 minutes or so, 34 minutes of like archival footage of the real life man, like back from the 80s, whenever he was like performing on stage with his partner, which you can see a little bit during the end credits, but you get to see more of that in the special features, along with this extended version of like this infomercial that they show in the movie. So there's like a few good like special features for those who really like the movie and want just a little bit more out of it. So yeah, Moon Manor was a fun discovery. I think if you like poignant commentaries on death and like how you want to go out, it's a really interesting movie to check out.
Yeah, it sounds like I would need to be in the right kind of frame of mind.
Yeah.
Sounds very heavy, but you know, in a way that, again, as you say, like poignant, like it's,
Yeah.
you would say it's definitely worth the journey.
Yeah,
overall.
it's life affirming within its like kind of dour subject matter.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah.
This is another discovery that I think I picked it just because I really enjoy learning about things that I know little to nothing about, and that is my definitely the subject of my next title, which is the Wobblies. And it sounds like a whimsical child's movie, but it is actually about union, this union called the IWW. There's the back. This is brought to you by MoMA. I believe they did the restoration, which looks fantastic, but I'll get into that in a little bit. So the film itself, again, it tells the rise and the ultimate downfall of this working class union called IWW, but it's also known as the Wobblies. It sounds like a very dry and boring story. However, I think the filmmakers do a really great job at kind of laying out the history of the union, and you know, it's strife and fighting and all this kind of crazy stuff that happened during the kind of heyday of this union. And so they use interviews with surviving IWW members, and they folded in with like rare archival material and even like some animation, which I thought was really clever and interesting. This, in my opinion, is a really engaging film, and it's a wonderful snapshot in a moment in history that is thankfully preserved, thanks to these filmmakers. It's one of those movies that will kind of make you mad, and that's the point. The things that these people went through was heartbreaking. They would talk about, these union people that would be beaten up or arrested or even killed. And it's so interesting that they've never really made a movie about this, because I'm watching it and taking notes, and I'm thinking that is so cinematic. It almost feels like something that like Scorsese would turn into a movie. Like sincerely, it's like that kind of riveting. The restoration is really impressive, especially from this was made in 1979. And the new material and even like the archival stuff looks great. There was very little to no artifacts, which really impressed me, especially, this looks like it was shot on 16 millimeter, and sometimes that's always a little bit dicey to restore. But evidently like MoMA like had some really nice elements, because it looked really good. Like the interviews that they shot specifically for the film really impressed with just how lifelike and like crisp and clear the colors were. I cannot say enough good stuff about how it looks and sounds. I was like really impressed. And this does feature some interviews, and again, it kind of adds to that historical context that I think is important to really appreciate the film. You don't necessarily need it to find the story engaging, but it definitely kind of adds that layer to the whole story. And yeah, it's really cool. It was a really nice discovery. I had even forgotten that I like picked this film, and I am happy that I did, because it's something that I would probably like to learn more about. And again, I am kind of surprised that they haven't made a film about it, because I think it's that like riveting.
Yeah, it sounds like they need to.
There you
go. Yeah, one thing. Okay, if anyone from Kino Lorber is watching, I would say I love you guys. I love you guys. One grievance I have to air is, if you're going to go through the like trouble of doing a 4K restoration with MoMA, why is this not on a Blu-ray disc? Why did they stick to a DVD only? So that's my only like. I know the content of the film is the important thing, but if they're going to do a 4K restoration, I really expect to see this on a Blu-ray disc. So that was kind of disappointing.
Yeah, and I know that like there might be like factors. I know like when they probably run the numbers, they maybe found it less risky, because it's about union workers, so it might not be like the hottest ticket in town. But yeah, I certainly agree with you 100%. I think that maybe if it does well enough, they might maybe consider re-releasing this on Blu-ray. But
yeah, I mean, I'll check it out either way. I just if they're listening, just know there is a demand for it from someone. So like, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, they could make it just for us, like just like a 2 pressing.
Yeah, absolutely. But make it a press disc. I don't want a burnt disc. Make it a press disc.
There you go.
But hey, I love them, like I said, and I'm going to continue talking about them for my last 2 releases, like I've done for the past 2 releases as well. This is the Kino Classics release of The Horse Soldiers from John Ford with John Wayne and William Holden. So a few weeks back, you spoke about The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. That kind of got me in the headspace of like, okay, yeah, I want to watch some more like classic westerns.
Nice.
This one is not in black and white. This is in color, but it's a new 4K master from MGM, like they did in conjunction with MGM, and it looks really nice. There's still kind of some the occasional like density fluctuation and like little nicks and scratches there. And I will say I've never seen this movie before, so I don't know how big of an upgrade it is. But I do think this overall looks really nice, and I think Kino did a really nice job with it. As far as like the story itself, like it's John Ford, so you can expect pretty much top quality. It's set during the Civil War era, and John Wayne plays like a leader of this battalion that's going from the north, who's going down into the deep south, and William Holden is like a doctor within this battalion, and they're going to like try to carry off this risky mission that, like I said, involves them going into the deep south. On their way, they stop at this woman's house, who's like this like genteel Southern belle woman, who you see her trying, like she plays sweet, but you see that she's trying to like gather information for like her Southern cohort so she can like basically rat out their plans of Northern aggression. But they figure out what she's doing and they kind of like commandeer her, kidnap her, but like not in like a bad, but it's war, so they commandeer her, they kidnap her, and you kind of, there's like this kind of like side story of like her relationship and how she kind of deals with being a prisoner of war, but also like kind of seeing a different side of these Northern soldiers that's kind of like become more of a black and white issue, and there's like shades of gray within it, which I think John Ford's really good at looking at some of these like classic issues and bringing some nuance to the characters. But sure, there is kind of like a line in the sand drawn of just like the North was right. They're not. He's not trying to like toe the line on slavery or anything, but there's some really interesting moments where these Northerners who are fighting the Southerners, you can see the remorse from what they're having to do and how like certain situations they're forced into. So I really like that it's not like a rah war is great type of picture. There's some nuance that Ford does really well, as like you kind of talked about with like The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. Not everything is like black and white. So yeah, this is a like, if you like westerns, it's a really like interesting one. John Wayne does a really solid job. Like the whole cast does really, but I was never like a huge John Wayne fan, but I'm starting to see more of his stuff. And like, while I obviously wouldn't have agreed with him on all of his politics, like he is like a really transfixing screen presence, like commanding. And if you're a fan of this, it has an audio commentary in addition to the new 4K master. So I think Kino Classics released a really solid disc.
Nice. That sounds like a great release, Pilgrim.
Pilgrim, right? Every single line.
Pilgrim. There should be a drinking game with Liberty Valance, because he says Pilgrim a lot. Like, I do not endorse a drinking game with that, because you will be dead. He says it like, I wish I would have kept a tally, but anyways. No, that sounds really interesting. That is another one that wasn't really necessarily on my radar, but I will definitely give that a chance. I'm starting to kind of soften more on westerns.
Same.
You sold me when you said it was had a little more nuance to it. As far as like, it's not like a, as you say, like war is great, kind of rally cry.
Yeah, I think you just have to know your directors whenever you're going into that genre. Like certain directors handle it with more like nuance than others.
Yeah, absolutely. So now next I have the complete 5th season of Lucifer.
Yeah.
Now, so this is a DVD, but I will say that it is also on Blu-ray. So you have that option. So here is book cover, case, and some features, which is nice. I love gag reels. I think that's the outside of commentary is like my favorite kind of feature.
Yeah.
So here's the discs. Yeah, I don't want to get too crazy specific with any spoilers, any of the Lucifer fans or anybody that's sort of new to the show. I will say that the fifth season, things really start to heat up, pun intended, with Lucifer and his brother. And, it also does a really great job of upping the emotional stakes. One of the fun additions is Dennis Haysbert as God, and he's kind of he's the Allstate guy.
Uh,
Um,
yeah.
but it's always kind of fun to see him in anything, especially as like God.
Yeah.
So, uh, and it definitely really ramps up to a nice sort of like it's a really good like penultimate season. And I didn't really love how the entire show wraps up, but that's a whole other thing. But I will say this is an overall solid season. It wasn't great. There is a little bit of wonky plotting. It gets a little bit contrived. Had you watched Lucifer? Have you seen?
I've seen Lucifer. I don't think I've watched that season yet. I need to get caught up. I think I stopped right when it switched to Netflix, which this might have been the first season on Netflix.
Yeah.
So I need to like get this and get caught up. But I really like the show a lot more than I thought I would when I started out. Like there are procedural elements, but Tom Ellis is such a good like central character, and just his like relationship with the like rest of the cast. I really enjoy the show. I understand why it has such a rabid fan base because it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and like any show that goes past a certain point, you do get a lot of maybe overly ridiculous elements. And I think Lucifer is a show that's always sort of towed that line between absurd and mundane. That's the whole, I think, like fun of the premise. But it does start to get a little ridiculous. I do think this is again an overall really good season. And I think as far as just a DVD version of it goes, the upconvert even at like 720 is fine. Again, they do have a Blu-ray option, the 1080p, which obviously will look better. I'm always kind of impressed at how even these DVD transfers of these like newer shows, like shot on digital, still look fairly nice. You just don't get that like really fine like definition like you do a Blu-ray, but like having a 4K TV, it definitely like up converts it a little bit more. So
Absolutely. I believe that's put out by Warner Archive, the Blu-ray.
yeah.
So
Mhm.
you might not find it in stores, but you can find it online.
Yep.
Yeah, and I wanted to clarify the reason I was confused whenever you said Dennis Haysbert. My first my mind went to Dennis from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and I was like, I could see him playing God. And then you said Allstate, and I was like, no, I'm thinking of the wrong thing.
Yeah, it's so. I mean, it's kind of a testament to like how like ingrained those ads are. I could see him in like just about anything, and I'm always like, when is he going to start talking about insurance?
To this day, my mom still refers to him as President Palmer from 24 because she was a big 24 fan.
Nice.
So that's how in our house we talk about Dennis Haysbert.
He did he was also in, I'm blanking on it, but it was like a really good, it was like Far From Heaven.
Yeah.
With Julianne Moore.
Like a Todd Haynes movie, right?
Yeah, yes, you're right.
Yeah.
Also a really good movie, but Lucifer's just a fun show. It definitely makes me sad that it's over. I always kind of wish, I mean, I like how they wrapped it up, but I won't spoil it since you haven't seen it. But
Thank you.
Yeah, it's when we do, we'll have to talk about it.
Yeah, that'll be fun. My last title, it has a kind of trashy title, but it's actually pretty fun. Um, well, I mean, trashy is fun to a lot of people, so whatever. This is Love Slaves of the Amazons. Look at that cover.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
So yeah, it does come with a slipcover from Kino Classics, our friends. And yes, I don't think, no, it doesn't come with a double-sided artwork. It just normal Kino style. So a lot of times if I just saw like a title like this, I'd laugh and just kind of move on and just be like, okay. But what drew me to this is written and produced and directed by Kurt Sidomak, who did The Wolfman. So I had to check it out, see how it was. And it's like, it's the right amount of kind of like cheesy fun. It delivers upon its title. It's like about a scientist who I won't go into all the great particulars, but he ends up going on a expedition down the river because there is lore about these Amazon women that he doesn't really believe in, but he's going for other reasons. And then of course he ends up kind of like stranded on this island where these Amazon women take love slaves. And while he is there, he meets this other woman who's not one of the original, like the Amazons, but she is a woman who was lost and presumed dead from like a few years earlier on an expedition, and they're both trying to find a way off the island. So that's like the basic premise, and it goes pretty much how you would expect it to go. I'm not going to say this is like full of twists and turns. It's Love Slaves of the Amazon. Like he has to kind of pretend to like some of these like brutal Amazon women like more than he actually does. Some of the women are like painted green, so they kind of like alienish, but then they're also like bathing in the water, like and washing their green paint off. So it's like it's not like they're like supernatural.
That's great.
It's like a cheesy, fun, like silly time. If me saying the title "Love Slaves of the Amazons" like tickles something in your brain, this is probably one you should pick up because it is that movie. It's a brand new 2K master. It's not perfect, but it like looks really nice. It like has a few like a little, like I said, density fluctuation, some nicks and scratches still. It's not like pristine, but for this movie and like overall, I think it's like a really nice transfer. It sounds good. New audio commentary track from Brian Reisman and Max Every, and just like an assortment of trailers like most Kino Classics releases. So if this sounds fun to you, if you're a fan of Kurt Sidomak, this pretty good movie. And like we've said a couple times on this, if you want this nice slipcover, get it early.
Yeah, then that sounds great. And again, something that wasn't necessarily on my radar, but I, like his other films. I think The Wolfman is maybe one of my favorite, like classic Universal films. And I do really like. What year was that again?
1957. 57.
Okay, cool. Because I definitely like dig like 50s and even early like 60s, like trashy kind of fun films. So yeah, that definitely as you were describing it, especially like the green paint coming off in the water, I was like, this movie,
yeah,
I have to own it. Not even just see it, just like own it.
Yeah.
So yeah, gosh, we had some really great titles. I think that was a good one to
We've done it again.
Another one in the books.
Yes.
So as always, thank you for hanging out with us. And if you like this content, definitely consider giving us a like, subscribing, and also just commenting, like letting us know what titles we talked about that you are most looking forward to, or why are we right or wrong about something. So just talk to us. So
yeah, Lucifer fans, come on, like, we welcome you, we want to talk to you,
all one of you, please.
Oh, don't you say that. They'll come for us. They will come for us.
Yeah, hopefully not. Please like us. So anyways, again, thank you, and until next time.